my friends, and happy Thursday. It's a beautiful day. Everything is in bloom. All of our beautiful roses are in bloom. And today is a great day to make a multi-strand necklace. We're going to be making a necklace that I called Mykonos, and this is what it looks like. So it is a 3-strand necklace, and eventually it all just kind of gathers into one strand. And I know there's so many different ways to make a 3-strand necklace. And this is the one that made sense to me for this project. I wanted it to be very drapey and casual, using a lot of summer colors, definitely ocean inspired, and just a little bit inspired by Greek mythology. These little charms, I kind of think of them as shields almost. You see a lot of components like this with in Greek inspired jewelry. Just imagine you're going to a toga party, and you can wear this with your very fashionable summer white toga. Or of course you can wear it with a summer dress. You can wear it maybe with something very casual, or you can dress it up a little bit.
Ellen says, hi, Irina and everyone.
Hi, Ellen, and thank you for joining me.
Angela says, good evening.
Hello, Angela.
Fonda says, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Fonda.
Amy says, hi, everybody. Beautiful project tonight.
Thank you so much, Amy, and hi.
Karen says, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Karen.
Julie says, hello.
Hi, Julie. Well, I'm so glad you guys have joined me today. So we are going to explore a few different fairly basic techniques. There's really nothing complicated about this type of a project, but it's really more about the engineering of how do we make a 3-strand necklace, and then it all becomes one strand as we get to the top. Now, why do we want it to become one strand? Well, it's a lot easier to wear because, you know, as the piece goes around our neck, really less is more. And in this case, it's really quite minimal. By the time it actually hits the side of your neck, it's really very, very minimal.
Pammy J says, hello, Irina, Tony, Lauren, and everyone.
Hi, Pammy J.
Kim K says, happy Thursday, happy summer.
Thank you so much, Kim. That's right. It is officially summer. And yes, it's been so beautiful, so warm. This is like my kind of summer when it's nice and hot and sunny. I know we do need a little rain as well, but it's just been beautiful. And this, of course, is definitely a summer colorway. And I feel like the second colorway that we will be making is also, it can be summer. It's really more transitional, but this is my summer colorway.
Carmen says, hi, Irina and Tony.
Hi, Carmen, and thanks for joining us. All right, guys, so what do you think? Should we get started? I'm thinking yes.
Carmen says, love the necklace.
Thank you so much, Carmen. So today we're going to explore how to make it, even though it's casual, but I feel that the construction is point out what makes it lay really well. So we have the chunkier beads toward the front. And we like our slightly chunkier beads because, you know, it gives us a little drama. It gives us, it gives a little balance to our necklace between the size of our charms And then, of course, the size of, let's see, the size of the rondelles, I feel are very proportional to the size of the charms. And as we go up, the strands get a bit daintier. And that is one of the elements that we want to see. I feel like it's really aesthetically pleasing to see the chunkier strand as the longest strand, and then a little smaller for the second one, and a little smaller yet, or a lot smaller yet, for the shortest one. Also, this is very much on trend where you use some of your gemstone beads with metal elements. And then one of the strands is chain. This is something that really just gives us this feeling of being right on trend. And what else can I tell you? So the other thing that I really like to do with these types of necklaces, here, let me just show you where the three strands come together. So as you can see, in the two strands where I have beads that are strong, I transition to a little dainty chain. And so it's very easy to transition from three strands to one strand when you first include this little element of dainty chain, and then you gather all of the chains either into a loop, or depending on your design, it could be a jump ring. I obviously chose a loop because I wanted to add another little element. It just makes it more complete, because this bead right here, the rondelle that is framed by two bead caps, really continues the theme of the gemstone beads, in this case, of course, Amazonite beads. And the whole necklace looks more finished that way with those twin elements right there.
Nerica says, good evening, everyone. Beautiful necklace.
Hello, Nerica, and thank you so much.
Patricia says, good evening, everyone. I love it.
Hi, Patricia. Thank you. All right, ladies, let's get started. So a part of this necklace is going to be strung on soft flex wire. I'm going to move the necklace just for now so we have a little more room. And I am going to start stringing. Actually, before I start stringing, we are going to do a little bit of a review of how to use crimps and wire guardians and crimp covers. Those are all very, very important elements of jewelry construction. So I am working with small soft flex wire. This is 0.014, which is what I use most of the time when I use soft flex wire. And I'm stringing a crimp on, and now I'm going to use the wire guardian, which is that little horseshoe element. And we're just going to string right through one side and the other side of the wire guardian and go right back into the crimp.
Lori says, good evening, Irina and Tony. Are you using cubies?
Hi, Lori. And yes, of course. I love cubies, and I use them in nearly every project, some type of a cubie. I have so many different kinds of cubies.
Katie says, good evening, all.
And hi, Katie. I'm so glad you joined us.
Jane says, those charms really make everything pop.
Oh, thank you so much, Jane. I really am very fond of those charms as well. Okay, guys, so you see how between our crimp and our wire guardian, you can see quite a bit of exposed wire or soft flex wire to be exact. So if you don't want to have all this exposed wire, or even if you just like the look, I personally like the look of a slightly smaller loop. So look, I just gave it a little tiny squeeze, right? And all of a sudden it looks that much more dainty. We do want to keep just a little bit of space between the crimp and the wire guardian because we are going to cover this crimp with a crimp cover. So it's helpful to have just a little bit of space, but you don't need a whole lot. Maybe a millimeter, half a millimeter is plenty. And then we're going to use, oh my goodness, I just realized that I grabbed the mighty crimper instead of the regular crimper. So give me a second while I'm grabbing my regular crimper. And we're going to have a little review of how a crimper works, because I know that new people are joining us every day or possibly watching later. So just let me remind you, there are two openings in the crimper. One looks exactly like a kidney bean and the other is oval. We're going to use the kidney bean shaped opening first. That is the one that is the furthest from the tip of the pliers. And this is what it is going to do. It's going to reshape our crimp. So it looks like one side is concave and the other is convex. So now we are going to switch to the oval opening and hold it like this. I like to hold it so I can actually see that little groove. I don't know if you can see it, but in person you would be able to see it. And then I simply bring the two sides together, and the crimp folds just like a little book. So now we can cut off the excess wire. We do not need to keep it for any reason. We don't need to feed it through the beads. I know there's a very common misconception that you need to feed it through your beads, but you know, a lot of the time it's not even possible to feed it through your beads. So now we are going to use our crimp cover. And this is what a crimp cover looks like. It looks like an open round bead. So we're going to use that to cover our crimp. And this is a 3 millimeter crimp. And the easiest way, or rather, this is a 3 millimeter crimp cover. The easiest way to pick it up is just with your chain nose pliers. So put the crimp right inside the crimp cover and start squeezing.
Pammy J is wondering how long is the soft flex?
Oh, thank you so much for asking, Pammy J. So the soft flex, oh my goodness, I kind of forgot how long it is. I want to say maybe 15, 16 inches. But when you get your kits, all I know is that when you get your kit, because the soft flex is continuous, just cut it in half, please. Cut it in half and you should have more than enough for each strand, because there are going to be 2 strands that use soft flex wire. So I hope that helps. And actually, Tony is looking it up. Okay, yes. So you will get a flex wire in your kit. So just cut it in half. And so this is what it looks like once you have covered your crimp with a crimp cover.
Allie says, hi, this looks like a cool necklace. Happy summer, everyone.
Hi, Allie, and thank you so much. Happy summer to you as well. Okay, guys, so once we have, we've crimped, we have our wire guardian, we have covered our crimp, now we can start stringing. And So I'm not going to do all of the stringing during the video, but just to give us a little bit of an idea of our pattern. So of course, we have the wonderful cubies, which are so awesome. I use them for everything. And so it's a very, very simple pattern. And it's going to essentially look like this. You pick up an 11-0 seed bead, and yes, these are the 11-0 seed beads that are hollow, which I use so much. So these are hollow metal seed beads. They're not glass, and they work great for just about anything, for little spacers. And so it's just going to be cubies and seed beads, and that's it. For about a couple of inches, or to be exact, well, actually, I can't really be exact because you do have some extra cubies and extra seed beads. So if you want to make your necklace a little longer, you can. There's also going to be one interesting nuance where you can decide just exactly how you want to do this. But I will just tell you that on my sample, this sample right here, I have 10 seed beads, 11 seed beads and 10 cubies. So let's go ahead and do that right now. And I'm just going to continue stringing until I have 10 seed beads and 11 cubies. And okay, so let's count. So we have, I need 2 more cubies, and they are right here. So as I said, I'm not necessarily intending to string the whole thing, but I would love to talk about my strategy as far as this strand right here. So this is the strand that consists of the cubies, 11 O's, and then of course the beautiful India agate. So India agate, you might know it as fancy jasper, you might know it as moss agate when it's more green, but really India agate is so amazingly versatile and colorful. So how do we deal with that? Well, obviously, you could just say, you know, I like it exactly how it is and string it in pretty random order. You do have a few extras here. So if you feel that you don't like 1 or 2 beads, you don't have to use them. But here is my approach. I really like the idea of at least somewhat graduated color or color gradation. And so because, here, let me show you this strand again just by itself, because you know, when you see it with the, when you see it in the necklace finished, you're not necessarily deconstructing everything that's in it. But now that I'm showing it to you like this, you can see I have little groups of 3 beads, and each little group is, so it starts out as the darkest group is right in the center, and then it gets a bit lighter and lighter yet, and by the time you get to the end groups, and they're a total of 7 3-bead groups. By the time you get to the end, they get quite a bit lighter. And I really like this look. So in other videos, and if you've ever been in my classes, we talk about visual weight. And visual weight of a darker bead is greater than visual weight of a lighter bead. It's just how your eye is drawn to to specific colors. And so what I like to do is before I start stringing, I will actually play with my beads because it is so much fun and we all like to play with our beads. And I will create little groups of color, something that makes me happy, and you get the idea. So as we go away from the center, they just get lighter. And I'm doing this very quickly, so this is incredibly casual, but you can take your time. And sometimes, I might put the lighter bead in the center or at the end. There's really no right or wrong. You do whatever feels right to you. And so we have 4 extra beads in this. And now I'm just going to put them away because we no longer need them. So what do you think? Does this make sense? I think it does. Just play with your beads and enjoy. All right, so once you have the order of your necklace, great. Just start stringing. And because we're going from one side to the other side, we'll start stringing at the end. And so what I do is I don't put any spacers between the 3 beads in the same group. But then when I'm done stringing those 3 beads, I will just put a little spacer, or actually a group of spacers consisting of an 11-0 bead, a QB, and another 11-0 bead, and then you go on to the next group. So now you can see it's really starting to look like my sample necklace. So this is what we're going to do. And then, of course, this is when I say, and through the magic of Facebook Live, we have this strand completely finished. And not only that, but magically it changed colors. So look at that, it's all done, and wow, it's a different color. So clearly this is the other colorway. So we have 2 different colorways. The name of the project is Mykonos Necklace, and the colorways are called Waterfall. This is the lighter one. This one, well, to me it looks like waterfall with maybe just a little moss on the rocks and water. I feel that these beautiful Amazonite beads are very watery. And then, of course, we have India agate, which has those blues and greens. So this is waterfall, and this is going to be midnight blue.
Bobby says, oops, caught you late. Hi.
Hi, Bobby.
Hi, all.
Well, you're not that late. We just got started, so it's all good. Okay, guys, so now I have this strand finished. So all we're going to do is string all of our beads. And I will mention that with this strand, you don't have to worry about color gradation. It's pretty much very similar. In each bead is pretty similar in color. I won't say that they're identical because of course they're created by nature. They're never going to be identical, but close enough. All right, so now we are stringing our strand and finishing the same exact way as we started, by putting our crimp on our wire, then going through the wire guardian, and finally covering the crimp with the crimp cover. Okay, and we are going to string both of these strands. And so our midnight blue colorway is lapis and, of course, black labradorite.
Trudy says hi all.
Hi, Trudy. Thanks for joining us.
Mary says hello.
Hi, Mary. And the black labradorite, let me just point out, it has a very, very subtle titanium coating. So that just sort of brings out the blue in the black labradorite. And so that is why I went with those wonderful lapis beads. But let me talk just a little bit more about the bead choices and how they change things just a little bit. So not only are we using two different stones in each of these necklaces, but the size and the shape of the stone are going to slightly vary. So in the waterfall variation, we have a slightly larger faceted bead on top, right, in our middle strand. And here we have a lapis bead, which is just under 4 millimeters. So in the gemstone world, there's really no standard like, like when you buy Swarovski, there's a very specific size, right? There's a 3 millimeter bead and then there's a 4 millimeter bead. There's not a bead that is 3.7. Whereas when we buy gemstones, they're going to vary so much because each maker, each manufacturer does it just a little bit differently. And you can buy 4 millimeter beads, but some of your 4 millimeter beads are going to be 3.8, and some of your other 4 millimeter beads are actually going to be maybe 4.5 millimeters. So there are going to be a lot of variations. And the reason I'm talking about this is because when you design a necklace like this, we are not going to have the same ratio of, how I don't even have the words exactly to explain it, but you know how we always talk about if you have a longer strand and a slightly shorter strand and a shorter strand yet, how long should these strands be? So the size of the beads is going to affect the ratio of where the beads fall as far as, in relationship to the other bead. So because of that, you should be aware that for this necklace, I used 10 of the QBs for the lapis strand, and then 12 of the QBs for the black labradorite strand. Okay, so 10 QBs for the middle strand and 12 QBs for the longest one, right? And when you make the waterfall variation, it's actually even easier. I believe I used 10 QBs for each strand. So
Bobby says, oh, thank you for addressing this topic.
Oh, thank you so much, Bobby. But I do want to talk about it just a little more. So clearly, not every 3-strand necklace is going to hang this very way. Because, maybe it's your preference to have them closer or to have them further apart. And everything works. Whatever, if you feel that it is aesthetically pleasing, then it works, right? So this ratio is very much aesthetically pleasing to me. And in fact, let me grab the chain and we are about to measure everything. So we'll figure out exactly how long everything is. So the other interesting component of this type of design is that some people like their necklaces shorter and some like them longer. So if you like your necklace shorter, it's kind of a different look as far as where all the strands are going to fall. So in other words, the closer this gets to your neck, the more room we have in between the strands. So that's something to be taken into consideration. Neither is right or wrong. You can make them longer by adding more QBs and 11Os, or shorter by shorter distance, that is. So you just have to figure out what works for you, but I'm telling you exactly what works for me. So let me move this for a moment, because my little gray surface is only an 8 by 8, and our strands are quite a bit longer than that, I think. And so the longest strand is 10.5 inches, just a hair under 10.5 inches. The middle strand is, I think, like exactly an inch, maybe an inch and 1/8 longer than, shorter than that. And how did this happen? Oh, I know exactly how it happened. Okay, because we're not quite done. I was thinking, wait a minute, why is the shortest strand actually not the shortest strand? Well, because I should do one more step, and then we'll remeasure everything. That will make sense. So the one more step rather, is extending our 2 beaded strands using this very dainty little chain. I love this very dainty chain. This is the double Rollo. You can barely see it's double, but each little link consists of two loops or 2 links. And I'm just grabbing some jump rings, and we're going to start connecting everything, and then we will remeasure. So I like to just open all of my jump rings all at the same time. So I will do that with all 4 of my jump rings. And so for something like this, because I'm using such a dainty little Rollo, I really had to think about the wire gauge of these jump rings. And so the wire gauge of these jump rings, I want to say, is about 22 gauge, but they're nicely hardened. So they're going to stay in place really, really well. So I pre-opened all 4 of the jump rings, and now I am going to connect my little dainty chain. So about the chain, in your kit, you have a little more chain than I do. I think I want to say 7 inches. I'm actually only using 4 inches because it worked out really well for what I wanted, to just use 1 inch per each end. And so I have already pre-cut my chain, but you will have a length of chain, and you cut your own, and you can cut it however it makes sense to you. So if you like exactly the look of my necklace, it is 1 inch that I'm using. And this little dainty chain, it's just so cute. I have to tell you, I do use it in so many different projects. And what I love about it is that because it consists of these very, very tiny little links, it's incredibly drapey, which is exactly what we want in a project like this. All right, so this is our last jump ring right here. And so now we're going to measure again. And what we're going to see is that lengthwise, each one of these is about an inch apart. So you have seen how it looks with my 3 strands being approximately an inch apart. And if you like that look, then just cut yours exactly how I'm doing it with the number of beads, and this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so I lined up the chain ends on one end of all of our 3 strands. And now we're going to remeasure the distance between, okay, let's do it this way. So we already said it's about 1 1/8 of an inch between the longest and the medium strand. And again, it is 1/8 or possibly, I'm sorry, 1 1/8, or maybe 1 1 1/4, something like that. So that's what I have. And as long as we're here, let's measure each strand as well. And so it looks like our longest strand at this point is 12.5 inches. And so that would mean that our middle strand, I'm sorry, I know it's kind of awkward to see the numbers for me as well. So our middle strand is 11 and almost 11.5. And our chain is 10 1/4. Okay, so that would make sense. So once you have your 3 strands, and I'm putting it back on my gray surface, this is my favorite because of course it shows everything really well. So once we have our 3 strands, we are ready to gather them into like this one little bunch, right? So it's going to look something like that. Okay, so we're going to gather our 3 strands, and they are all going to be held by this wrapped loop link. So for my wrap loops, because of course I want my wrap loops to be consistent, so I will be using a bail making pliers, and this is the smallest bail making pliers I'm using, and I'm using 22 gauge wire. So I believe you guys all know how to make beautiful loops, but if you ever need a little refresher, or if anybody is new to making loops, you can watch my loop video where I break it down into the tiniest of steps. In the meantime, I made my loop, I left my wire at a 90-degree angle, and I'm going to start stringing all my strands into this loop. And I have to tell you, they are going to tangle just a little tiny bit, and it's not a big deal. It's just part of the look, and we just embrace that. And this is not going to be an organically wrapped loop. I just want a couple of neat little coils, and then I'm going to cut off the excess wire. And of course, we always want to just give it a little smushy and pinch it down so that it doesn't stick out and act as a weapon. And now I have my bead cap on and my bead. So this is one of the black labradorite beads, the same as in the necklace. And this is what we have. So now, of course, I am going to start making the second loop. And I'm just going to start the loop. And before I finish the loop, I will string my chain right into the loop and connect. You know what? I think I want to make this a slightly smaller loop. So I think I'm just going to use the smaller side of the bail making pliers, because really it's kind of like a 3-to-1 connector. And I only am putting one chain into this loop, so I don't need as big of a loop. And I already pre-cut my chain, so when you get your kit, just cut your chain in half. And this is 1/2 of my chain. I'm just stringing it right into the loop. And now we are ready to finish wrapping the loop. So when you make wrap loops, when you leave that little space to wrap into, be sure to wrap into the entire space. In other words, if you left a little more space, then your 2 coils will fill. It's a really good idea to go for that 3rd coil, because otherwise, if you have a little bit of wire that is not reinforced by those coils, it may just break in that spot. So I don't like to see breaks between the coiling and your bead. And so now we're just going to do the same thing for the other side. I am going to use my large side of the bail making pliers, make my loop, make sure that it's nice and centered. And now we're going to string. You know, actually, before I string, and this is particularly important for the very shortest strand, just kind of let gravity be your friend. And so what this is going to do is detangle the whole thing if there is any tangling. And it will also make sure that your chain hangs correctly. Because sometimes if your chain is down here, right, and somehow it gets twisted, right, like this. I'm just doing this on purpose and I'm exaggerating. But if you just let it get twisted and then you gather all of your strands, this is what happens. Your chain is all wonky, it does not hang correctly, and this is something we're going to avoid just by letting everything drop. Let gravity be your friend. I know gravity is not necessarily always our friend, but this time it is. Just, you know, let it do its thing. And so now we can gather all of our strands into the loop. And then we are going to finish making the wrapped loop. All right, so here I have all 3 of my strands in the loop, and we'll wrap like we always do, just a couple of times. And when you trim your excess wire, just try to get as close as you possibly can. And then it's very, very easy to pinch in that little end. Okay, so now we have another bead cap and our beautiful labradorite bead, black labradorite, and the final cap. So we're going to do the same thing on this hand. And by the way, this is not a must in any way, but when I make my loops, I really like my loops to line up with one another. So that is the reason I always hold my chain nose pliers perpendicular to the, I know it's hard to show. I hope you guys can see. So I always hold my chain nose pliers perpendicular to the first loop. And when I bend it, then I am ensuring that the second loop is going to be parallel to the first loop. So now I am again using the small side of my bail making pliers. And there's our loop. Again, before we wrap it, we are going to string it through the last link on our chain and wrap. And when you make wrapped loops, it's always a super good idea to use half hard wire or the equivalent of half hard wire. Obviously, these days we are using a lot of base metal wire. Base metal wire is not necessarily sold as half hard or dead soft, but both of those types of wire have very specific purposes. And if you want your loops to stay in place and not bend and eventually break, it's always a good idea to use something that feels like half hard wire. So in my case, it is Beadsmith brand of wire, which works incredibly well for me. You can find it in our Etsy shop. But of course, your wire will be included when you order the kit. And so now, at this point, we just have to finish the ends. And this is incredibly simple. So we have 2 more jump rings. And this time I'm using slightly heavier jump rings. Why? Because I can.
Allie says the labradorite looks so pretty with the bead caps. A whole strand of that would be awesome.
It would. Absolutely. And, we can probably include it at some point in the shopping video on Friday. I do listen to your suggestions, and I have to tell you, I'm super excited. Okay, I'm going to hold my excitement just for a moment to point out one really important thing. So as you saw, this necklace has a front and a back, because on the back, these little charms, they don't look quite as exciting. So you definitely want to differentiate between the front and the back. And the reason I'm pointing that out right now is because as you're finishing your necklace and you are attaching the lobster clasp, so I love lobster clasps. I know it's like an old school clasp, but it works so well. And more than that, it allows our necklace to be adjustable. So for me, the lobster goes on the right side because I'm a righty. If you're a lefty, your lobster should go on the left side because, it's going to be that much more difficult to clasp it with your non-dominant hand. So let's make it easy. Let's put it on whichever side is your dominant hand. And of course, on the remaining side, I'm putting the extender chain. And as you saw, I moved the sides of the jump ring a little closer. I've done this for every jump ring. It's just kind of automatic, but I thought I would remind you to do that as well. So you want a slight overlap as you close your jump ring so that as we close it, even if you don't hear that iconic click or scrape, you feel the scrape of metal on metal as you close the jump ring so that you do not lose your necklace. And that's it. We're done.
I hope I'm saying this correctly. Tuai says kia ora.
Kia ora. We would love to visit your beautiful country, Tuai, New Zealand. How fun! I love it. But actually, you must be in the United States if you're watching me. Oh, you're not in the United States. Well,
No.
I don't know. You let us know where you're watching from. In fact, you know what? We have not done this in forever. This is a question for everybody. Where are you guys watching from? Let me know. Of course, some of you I know because, we've done this for a long time and we've been hanging out and having a good time. But please do let me know where you guys are watching from.
Katie says this is likely as close as I will get to Mykonos.
Oh, the necklace?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I have to tell you, I have never been to Mykonos, but we're going in September. So that is my inspiration. I think I'm just excited about going to Mykonos, and maybe Greece has been on my mind a little bit, and Italy and Turkey. And so because we're going on the trip, so hence the name. But I find so much inspiration in nature and geography, because of course every place has its very beautiful and specific adornments, and every place has its beautiful and specific flowers, nature. It's awesome.
Fonda says both necklaces are beautiful. I just ordered the midnight color.
Oh, thank you so much. That would be this one. Thank you so much. Enjoy wearing it.
Amy says hello from Virginia.
Wonderful. I did not know, Amy, that you were from Virginia. Thank you.
Katie says, I've been fortunate to visit Greece many years ago.
Fantastic. Yes, I know. I hear that it's so beautiful. And our friends said that they're going, and we were like, and we're going with you. So we're incredibly excited.
Bobby says hi from Black Creek.
Black Creek and
Wisconsin.
Oh, that is Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I thought it was Wisconsin. I'm pretty sure I know which Bobby it is too.
Debbie says, hey everyone from North Carolina.
Hi, Debbie from North Carolina.
Allie says Brookfield.
Yay! I know which Allie. Awesome. Well, how fun. I love it that you guys are watching from different places.
Katie says Colgate, Wisconsin.
Yay. All right, guys. And of course, Pammy J, I know you're watching from Florida. So in the meantime, you guys, we're done. We're done with the project. How easy was this? I know it doesn't look super easy, but once you know exactly how all the Legos come together, it's so incredibly easy. The thing that people sometimes find difficult about making these transitions is how do you make it not bulky at the point of transitioning? And I just showed you, this is how you make it graceful and elegant. And this is applicable to so many different designs. I use this technique a lot with a lot of different variations. So, unless you have questions about this, which if you do, please don't be shy. But in the meantime, I would love to tell you what's coming up. And tomorrow, so I just grabbed this one very, very beautiful chevron amethyst. How cool is this? So this is just a very tiny representation of what we're going to be looking at tomorrow. Tomorrow, of course, is my shopping video, my shopping event. And this is going to be tomorrow, Friday morning. We're calling tomorrow's event Summer Treasures. And there are going to be a lot of summer beads and also something that was requested. So I'm excited about that. And of course, this is tomorrow, Friday, June 23rd, at 9 o'clock CST on the Eclectica page. But wait, you guys, there's more. Then next Thursday, we are going to be making another summer necklace. Very, very summery, very, very beachy. I'm super excited about the colors. And this one I'm calling Beach Treasures Necklace. And we're doing this next Thursday, June 29th. at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on my jewelry design page, and that's where you're on right this moment. And of course, next Friday, we will have another shopping event. The theme is yet to be determined. So if you have a dream, you tell me what it is, because I'm a lot of things, but I do not read minds. So if you have a dream and you want to see something very specific in not tomorrow's, but next Friday's video, you let me know and I will do my best to make it happen.
Allie?
Which, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So that reminds me, actually, you guys have been asking, multiple people have been asking for silver components video. And I have to tell you, that is coming up. It's not coming up. It's going to be at sometime in July. So buckle up, because this is going to be a very, very exciting one. I'm working on bringing in all these amazing sterling silver components. It's going to be amazing. So in the meantime,
Kim K says, thanks so much. Love this.
thank you so much, Kim.
And Allie says, woohoo, I can watch it live. Students are done for the summer. Love the Beach Treasures necklace.
Woohoo! Thank you so much. It'll be awesome that you can watch it live. Well, you are watching it live right now too. So, okay guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I had a lot of fun chatting with you, and I will see you tomorrow morning. In the meantime, have a wonderful and creative evening.